the encounter. They called him Goliath of Gath. But I saw no man, only the echo of evil not yet silenced. He was stone wrapped in breath. And something in his shadow reached backward, toward the watchers, toward the flood and the failures that made his brain scream in defiance. When I stood before him, the sling felt light in my hand. Too light, way too light for war. But my heart was heavy with unspeakable rage. Yet what stirred in me was more than rage, it was memory. His size was immense, yes, but so was Pharaoh's throne and the pride of Saul. Goliath's voice came not from his throat, but from an ancient arrogance that had survived drowning. It came from his hatred of the Holy One, a God whose size could not defeat. He was not Nephilim by name, but by spirit. A spiritual residue. The flood did not wash it all away. It only sharpened the hatred. And suddenly I understood this wasn't a duel. It was a reckoning. They thought giants had died in the flood. But not all had died. Although Nephilim had drowned, cursed, and forgotten. Some had survived. I have seen their fingerprints in marble halls. I have heard their laughter in the mouths of kings. Goliath was not alone. He was a memory, shaped into flesh, trained in war, robed in arrogance. I've walked among others like him. Og of Bashan slept in iron, 13 feet long, they said. The sons of Anak loomed over Canaan, and we fled like grasshoppers. But none were taller than fear. I came to understand, giants do not live in bloodlines. They live in systems. In laws too heavy for the poor. In towers that climb toward heaven by the bones of the forgotten. In silence forced upon women whose love was inconvenient. The Nephilim are gone. But their legacy marches? Not in bodies, but in the unrepented pride of mankind. I remember the hush. Israel did not just lose courage. They lost voice. And shamefully, when Goliath mocked our God, no one answered. Not the king. Not the priests. Not the warriors. I was only a shepherd. But I knew silence was the most brutal kind of death. And so I said aloud, not just to the giant, but to the heavens, he cannot speak of my God that way. That's when I felt it. A shift in the wind. A turning in the heavens. God's shame melting into something softer. Recognition, maybe even pride. I saw him, not with my eyes, but with the soul's insight. He had turned to leave, but now turned back. To look at me. A tear graced the cheek of God. At that point, my aim no longer mattered. The stone could have flown north or west. It would have bent toward Goliath's brow. Like the moon pulls the tide. It was never about strength. It was about alignment. Between faith and justice. Between voice and silence. Between the boy who chose not to turn away. And the God who chose not to walk away. And so the sling became sacrament. A stone hurled from devotion, clothed in honor. Not guided by hand, but by the tear my heart saw in God's eye. The valley did not roar. It exhaled, almost silently. Goliath fell. The ground held his weight. But the silence held something heavier. I did not raise my arms. I did not cheer. I stood, as if before a grave, not of a man, but of a spirit long resisted. The sling lay empty. And still, my hand trembled. Because what fell that day was more than a giant. Arrogance crumbled. Mockery broke. And the hush became sacred. Some asked how I aimed so true. I told them I didn't. I only spoke his name. When no one else would. God did the rest. He bent the wind. He cradled the stone. And in one tear, the pride and love of a holy God thundered.